You're still watching the After Business Morning. Welcome to Global Business, where we will take a look at business news stories around the continent of Africa and indeed the rest of the world. My name is Ubong Kings, and here are the headlines making the rounds. And we're starting off in Africa, where it's reported that Rwanda deportation scheme is to be nullified. And outside Africa, female representation in AI engineering doubles. And still from outside Africa now, European Central Bank decodes the digital euro. We will bring you details of these news stories and more right after this break. Please stay. You're watching Global Business right here on the After Business Morning, and we begin from East Africa, where it is reported that the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Sir Keir Starmer, has revealed that the Rwandan deportation scheme passionately advocated by the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will be nullified. He stated on his first full day as Prime Minister that the program is dead and buried. The new Prime Minister revealed that he plans to end the gimmick of deporting migrants coming into the UK unlawfully to Rwanda, and further noted that the scheme was expensive and will be replaced with more effective measures to curtail illegal immigration. Meanwhile, during his campaign, he had stated that the policy, which had already cost the UK £310 million, would be replaced with more efficient methods for combating illegal migration. Now, the new Prime Minister noted that the policy has never been a deterrent since it deports less than 1% of small boat arrivals. Now, here are a few things that are worth emphasizing. Now, the first is the fact that the new Prime Minister has revealed, of course, the plans to end what he called the gimmick of deporting migrants coming into the UK unlawfully to Rwanda. Now, incredibly, he also felt and noted that this scheme was expensive and will be replaced with more effective measures to curtail illegal immigration. Now, meanwhile, this scheme, according to reports, has already cost the UK £310 million. Now, let me break this down real quickly. According to an investigation by the National Audit Office, the development funding, listen to this, I'm going to take time to read this all out for y'all to understand. Now, the development funding comprises a fixed cost of £370 million plus an additional £120 million once 300 people are relocated to Rwanda. That's monies. Now, listen to this. An additional £20,000 will be paid to the development fund for each person that is relocated. It doesn't stop there. In addition to these payments into Rwanda's development fund, the Home Office will also send per person payments to Rwanda to cover asylum processing, operational costs, and integration package for each relocated person. Now, the integration package includes things like, of course, accommodation, food, education, language training, professional development, etc. And listen to this, these payments last up to 5 years and total £150,874,000 per person. Now, this clearly explains why the new Prime Minister is saying that the scheme is dead and buried. Moving on and to other business news stories, and still from Africa, Africa's share of the global air travel market stands, as it were, at only around 2%, a level that has remained largely static over the past 20 years. While the potential of Africa is at the last frontier of global aviation has often generated excitement in airline boardrooms, many African carriers have struggled with financial chaos, political interference, and haphazard management over the course of many decades. The extent of the challenge facing African airlines can be grasped simply by finding a flight tracking website and zooming out to see a global view of aircraft movements in real time. Meanwhile, Europe, North America, and some parts of Asia are obscured by dense clouds of slowly moving aircraft icons, but the map of Africa is punctuated by just a few lonely places making their way across the continent. Recently, however, there has been unmistakable clues that things may be looking up for some Africa's leading airlines. Now, this story to me, quite frankly, brings back to mind a certain report I did share several months ago right here on the Global Business News and of the Africa Business Morning, where it was reported that Air Peace, a major player in the Nigerian and indeed the African aviation industry, was complaining of unfair practices to frustrate the operations. Remember that story? Now we have in the story that Africa's share of the global air travel market stands at only around 2%, and this level has remained largely the same and static over the past 20 years. Now, question is, why won't it remain that way, when rather than collaborate, we in Africa would rather frustrate? Judging from Alan Oyema's AirPC saga, coupled with EU practices from foreign airlines and airline operators, it's majorly a case of blocking one's eye and expecting to be able to see and remove the dirt in another person's eye. And that's my case, because if you look at that story critically, the extent of this is far-reaching. It's far-reaching because it's, listen to this. I'm going to go back to that story and just take one of the paragraphs there. It may interest you to know, with reference to that story, that Africa's share, so to speak, of global airspace is just about 2%, and it stayed there for about 20 years. In as much as it gets exciting when we talk about the African airspace in boardroom meetings, etc., it does not translate to actuality on ground, because, of course, quite a number of things are involved. Number one, financial chaos. In the case where there's no financial chaos, there's political interference, which pretty much is what Air Peace is going through at the moment. And of course, haphazard management over the course of many decades. But of course, we already know the case of Air Peace in this case scenario, and hopefully that case is resolved as soon as possible. But then we'll leave it as it were and monitor the stories as they unfold. And moving on to other business news stories from the world of tech, is reported that the World Economic Forum's most recent gender pay gap report shows female representation in artificial intelligence AI engineering has doubled since 2016, but remains woefully low by 0.20% compared to men, indicating why more women need to hack into the AI mainframe. Categorically, 6 months ago, roughly 15,000 kilometers away in Melbourne, Australia, a female politician had her breasts enlarged and top cropped by a generative artificial intelligence tool embedded in Adobe Photoshop. Right? Now, although this incident occurred on the other side of the world, movers and shakers in Europe appear similarly anxious about the newest technological craze stealing headlines and disrupting workplaces. Of course, we're talking about generative AI. But the World Economic Forum economist Sija Bala believes that if more women become AI engineers, nutting out the technology's best and most equitable design uses and functions in the lab, the pernicious news stories and studies about women being negatively affected by AI would not exist. Now, this is a very intriguing story if you ask me, because it brings to mind quite a number of issues. And if you ask me, let me just try to break this down very quickly. Now, even with this huge revolution in the artificial intelligence space, well, it clearly shows that there is a huge gender pay gap in artificial intelligence, AI engineering. This is, of course, according to the World Economic Forum. And sadly, too, even though female representation in artificial intelligence, AI engineering has doubled since 2016, it still remains woefully low at 0.20% compared to men. Now, this is indicating why more women would need to hack into the AI mainframe. And why is this so? Let me tell you why. This is pretty simple. Now, to close the gap, the pay gap between men and women in the AI space, a little wonder really why the World Economic Forum economists in the person of Sija Bola believes that if more women become AI compliant or engineers, these issues and news stories and studies about women being negatively affected by AI wouldn't exist, because women would now become key players in the AI space, right? So they'll have to generate or create apps or things that would pretty much not negatively affect them per se in the AI space. And I couldn't agree anymore because, well, we just keep our fingers crossed, and we'll keep you updated as this unfolds subsequently on more other editions of the program. But then again, you're watching Global Business right here on the Afia Business Morning on Afia TV. You may want to kindly join in on this conversation and more on our Afia Business YouTube channel. Kindly tap in the search bar www.youtube.com/@Afia Business, and while you're there, do well to like and subscribe for notifications on all business related content coming to you from Afia TV. Up next will be more business news stories from around the world. Please stay. You're welcome back to the Afia Business Morning right here on Afia TV, and you're still watching Global Business. Now we're moving straight to the rest of our stories, and we're going to be talking about stories from the European Union now, where it's reported that the European Central Bank (ECB) is working on the preparatory phase of the digital euro to make it as close to cash as possible in terms of privacy, safety, and accessibility. Yet, stakeholders remain concerned about its design and necessity. Meanwhile, in recent years, and especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, digital payments and online shopping have increased in the euro area, while cash has fallen as a total share of payments from 72% to 59% between 2019 and 2022, and the number of banknotes in circulation fell for the first time last year. Following this trend, in October 2021, the ECB launched a study phase on the possibility of issuing its own central bank digital currency, the digital euro, to provide an additional form of public money in the euro area. Moreover, in June last year, the EU Commission proposed a legal framework that could pave the way for the ECB to make the digital euro project a reality, and now it's up to co-legislators to finalize it. Now, you know, this is an incredibly interesting story because quite a few things that resonate with me in relation to Nigeria's, the EU Naira. Now, number one would be the design and necessity. For necessity, recall that in recent years, talking about the story we just read now, in recent years, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, it may interest you to know that digital payments and online shopping increased, not just in the euro area, but all over the world, while cash fell as a total share of payments in the euro area from 72% to 59%. And of course, the number of banknotes in circulation also fell for the first time in the euro area, zone, for the first time last year. Now, that is necessity, right? That is a function of necessity. The fact that a lot of these factors have reduced cash circulation, and then people are more comfortable with using or paying monies online, right? That's necessity. Number two, are you also aware that in October 2021, the ECB, that's the European Central Bank, launched a study phase? 2021, 3 years ago, they launched a study phase on the possibility of issuing its own central bank digital currency. That's, of course, the digital euro, to provide an additional form of public money in the euro area. Now, let's ask ourselves critical questions. How did the e-Naira go through this series of processes? From the place of legitimacy, why is it, do you think is necessary, to the place of necessity, to the possibility of launch of the digital currency, or research that was done for a period of maybe 3 years or thereabout before they came up with let's do this. Well, your guess is as good as mine. Moving on, and still talking business news stories from around the world, an increasing number of older Germans are relying on state benefits to top up their pensions, according to figures from the Federal Statistics Office. In the first quarter of 2024, a record number of 719,330 pensioners received basic social security support, which is an increase of almost 35,000 since March 2023, and a jump of around 511,915 since 2025. Meanwhile, Germany is currently raising its pension age from 65 years to 67 years, with the upper threshold now applying to anyone born after January 1964. Now, let's look at something very critical here. Now, how well, let's ask ourselves a fundamental question, how well have governments, so to speak, governments of the past and present in Nigeria, from local government to state government and even federal government, handled their pensioners? Right? Food for thought. And then think about that very briefly. And then for a moment or two, let's ask ourselves some other questions. It's pretty much almost always a case of delaying pension or gratuity payments. But here we have Germany. Even pensioners on lower incomes are offered financial support. Can you beat that? Financial support, which instead of being fixed, is determined on a case-by-case basis, looking at individual needs. Now, how well would you say that Nigeria and indeed state governments in Nigeria has fared in this regard? Then, moving on, let you guess the answer to that question. Moving on to last bulletin, and in an attempt to end this bulletin, let's bring you to this report that many UK investors have been dissatisfied with their portfolio performances over the last year, which is according to new research by investment firm Raw Capital Partners. Now, it may interest you to also know that the survey therefore questioned more than 750 UK investors who own portfolios worth more than £25,000, apart from other savings, residential property, and pensions. Although 47%, I beg your pardon, of investors were happy with the portfolio performance in the last year, just 40% were optimistic about their investments prospects in the next year. Soaring inflation, ongoing geopolitical conflicts, and the UK's current uncertain economic and political situation were all highlighted as key reasons for portfolios performing disappointingly so far. Now, where 32% of investors revealed that higher interest rates had contributed to their portfolios decreasing, and 45% of the investors surveyed cited sticky high inflation as a concern for managing their portfolios. Now, let's hold on very quickly. These are issues bedeviling investors in the UK, right? How about Nigeria? We are losing investors on a yearly basis, and as it stands, about 15 multinationals have visited Nigeria in the last 3 years. It's also worrisome to note that in the last 3 years, over 15 organizations, I'm trying to emphasize it, with a combined value chain staff strength of over about 20,000 employees, have either divested or partially closed operations right here in Nigeria. And this in itself has dire consequences, not only for the organized business sector, but also for labor, also for government revenue, and for households. Now, the consequences of this is massive job losses across sectors, and which will continue, of course, by extension, to create insecurity challenges, increase occurrence of child labor, as children will now be forced to become breadwinners of their families, adversely affecting the disposable incomes of families, and erode the purchasing power of individuals and drastically reduce the economy's output. These are key issues that should be looked at. I rest my case. You're still watching the Afia Business Morning. You can join in on this conversation on our new Afia Business YouTube channel. Do well to visit us at tapping www.youtube.com/@Afia Business on the search bar. While you're there, do well to like and subscribe for notifications on all business-related content coming to you from Afia TV. Come up next is a conversation which will seek to establish the correlation between money, management, and leadership. The Afia Business Morning will be right back. My name is Ubong Kings. Stay tuned.